Good evening, I'm Tobin Smith. I'm in for David Asman tonight, kicking off a scoreboard event. You got to stay with us this evening for something truly special. We got lessons from Joe Miller for Mitch Daniels, and we got lessons from Mitch Daniels to Joe Miller. You know, one is a Tea Party candidate who's exploding onto the national scene. The other is a potential presidential candidate who's been lauded for his conservative pragmatism. And it's important to understand the distinction. I will tell you why. Republicans of all stripes enjoying this huge momentum right now when this sort of generic ballot hitting that we're having here for the midterms. 51% to 41% advantage over Democrats among registered voters. That's according to Gallup's latest weekly poll. But the GOP has an opportunity they didn't have in 1994. Remember, that was the last time they actually held a majority in Congress. Because there's an electorate that is exhausted by Washington politicians and the double talk. And we all know this thing, right? This is where pay-go means you spend as you go, right? Where expenses like state salary bailouts are called investments. Now, the GOP appears satisfied, unfortunately, if you're a GOP person, for this one-plank platform. We're not the Democrats. Well, I got news for you. 75% of registered Republicans say their representative is out of touch with them. So where are the great ideas coming from in GOP land, right? The next contract with America? I'll tell you where they're coming from GOP governors. That's where, not from Washington. Now, John Boehner may think it's a great idea to fire President Obama's economic advisors, but the GOP is very light on a detailed strategy and the tactics we need to take America back to growth and prosperity. Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey and Bob McDonnell of Virginia are getting the headlines right now for, going after these bloated budgets, the deficit spending, while not raising taxes. But if you're looking for real ideas that have worked in the real world, our first guest has accomplished all the following as governor. Number one, created more private sector high-paying jobs than any state in the union. He's balanced a budget and took it from a $200 million deficit in 2005 to a $1.3 billion surplus in 2009. Think about that. They cut the number or froze the number of government workers while improving measured government performance. What an idea. And they created health insurance for uninsured people without mandating coverage and without raising premiums. Real ideas from Governor Mitch Daniels of Indiana. Governor, we welcome you to Fox Business Network. You talked about change, how we're not getting the change we thought. What do you mean by that?
I was observing that this effective slogan from 2008, apparently effective, change you can believe in, is really an empty phrase when you think about it, and maybe that was its magic, that people could invest in it, whatever they thought positive change might mean. I've said to some audiences that a different view of the world that some of us might hold could be better expressed as change that believes in you.
Yeah.
Change that doesn't believe you are a victim in need of benevolent supervision by wiser superiors in Washington, but someone, a person of dignity who can make your own choices if permitted and enabled to do so.
Well, Governor, when you came into Indiana, and of course you have a long career both in government as well as free enterprise, you came out with the idea that, first off, you were going to eliminate a $250 million deficit. You're in Indiana, which was not the most prosperous state at that time. What did you guys do in sort of simplified form here to go from a $250 million deficit to a $1.3 billion deficit, surplus, particularly between 05 and 09? I mean, I don't think people would think that's possible.
Oh, Tobin, it was very brilliant on our part. We spent less money than we took in.
No.
And you may want to write that down for future reference. No, I mean, you said simplify, and that does oversimplify. Yeah. We reformed all sorts of things in government, brought people with a business perspective and knew how to get results, and often with less dollars invested to do so. A lot of good work by a lot of good people went on to make this possible. But at base, all we simply did was say we're going to have to make some choices, the kind that grown-ups make, and we'll get out of this fix, and we did.
Governor, I'm always just taken aback that it seems like almost all the things you guys have accomplished have really been the mirror image or the reverse of what Obamanism's been about. Let's go to Obamacare. I want to read this quote. deficit neutral, you said, is a fraudulent description of the cost of the bill. It counts, 10 years of taxes, only 6 years of spending. On this Medicaid mandate for the states, we all know a sucker play when we see one. The taxes on our states will be much higher, and the worst effect will be the depressing effect on economic growth. That's your quote. You still stand by it?
I remember saying it, it was many months ago. A lot of my predictions that turn out not to be well-founded, but every word of that is, I'm sad to say, has come true. It's now everybody knows it's going to cost vastly more than they said. It's going to be a huge increase to the debt and deficits of this country if it's left on the books as it is. Everybody now knows it's going to raise premiums, not reduce them. Everybody knows people will lose choices and lose coverage they have now. And every state recognizes that it's going to impose a hidden tax on top of all that at the state level as we have to expand Medicaid and take on new assignments that Washington has dictated. Sure.
Now, your critics say that you have asked for stimulus money or money that was related to Medicaid, and that that is not the way of the world now, or that means that you're some type of rhino Republican in name only. The Medicaid things that are mandated by the federal government in Indiana, are you taking stimulus or Medicaid money simply so that you guys can afford to pay those mandates?
No. First of all, I've been consistently opposed to the stimulus certainly as practiced by this administration. You can think of it as trickle-down government, in which they poured almost all this money into government in various forms, and on the theory that some demand would fall out the bottom, and maybe somebody would go to the Walmart and they'd hire a new greeter. Just complete failure, as we can all see. And I've very consistently said that more spending stimulus was not going to be a good idea, especially done that way. The question is, if the check arrives, will we cash it? Yeah, sure. This stimulus thing they just did amounts to states that have been responsible, as ours has, and are in the black, subsidizing those who've been less careful with their spending. We send the check back, maybe there'd be some emotional satisfaction for a day, but it only makes that subsidy worse.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, you guys, let's talk about your health care plan, because as opposed to mandating Medicaid, opposed to mandating coverage, for your people who did not coverage in the state of Indiana, you came up with a plan that actually encouraged people to pursue a healthier lifestyle, that provided a sort of health savings account, and you didn't raise taxes to do that. Now, I'm always flummoxed. It seems like the Obama administration takes the plans that don't work, like the Massachusetts plan, and ignore the plans that have been working, like the Indiana plan. Tell us about the Indiana plan.
The Healthy Indiana plan does, at its bottom, trust people to make decisions. And we don't believe for a minute that low-income people are incapable of making good judgments for themselves or their loved ones about their health care. And now in its third year in existence, we're finding this out. It is built on a personal account. I called it the power account, personal wellness and responsibility, but it connotes that the power to make first dollar choices ought to be with the individual, then protect them completely against a really expensive medical event if it happens. And I do wish national policy had headed more in this direction, as opposed to building what'll look like a national HMO, controlling everything, squeezing the balloon in various places,
Governor, I don't want to cut you off.
See where that will take us.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off for running time. I want to thank you for being with us, and thank you for bringing some real ideas that have worked and are working. Maybe the GOP will listen to you. Thanks for being with us.
Enjoyed it.